Hello, guys. Just another regular Sunday with the HoopTalk podcast. Nothing special going on. Episode 14. Um, John D, how you been, man? I know it's been a quite a boring couple
Yeah,
days, but how you
man.
been?
It's been I can't even explain it. almost 24 hours later, and I feel like that meme of LeBron holding his head back and smiling and saying he can't believe this is his life. I've never felt like that being a fan until right now. There's been a lot of dark thoughts over these next couple of years. No draft capital. We have a 40-year-old superstar, and Anthony Davis' future without LeBron looks very glim. And now a 25-year-old phenom is just all we had to do was wait till something dropped in our hands. And I just want to say this. I don't want to ever hear anybody clown us for our photoshops anymore. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. If we want KD, we can get KD. If we want Shea, we can get Shea. We can get whoever we want. And I'm so glad that everybody hates the Lakers. I'm so glad. I'm so glad because you could have chose this life. You could have chose this life when you were watching basketball as a young child and you're like, you know what team do I want to be a fan of? Most of the people took the regular route. You know what? I'm gonna cheer for my home team. I'm gonna just ride it out. I was like, you know what? I'm a big fan of this Kobe guy. I'm gonna stick with him. And when he retires, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna stick with this team. No matter how many Carlos Boozer minutes or Robert Satre minutes or Steve Blake minutes, I'm gonna stick with my Los Angeles Lakers team because of days like this. It's
Okay.
fantastic.
You're not gonna act like you went through the tough times. We're not about to do this. But for anyone who's been living under a rock, this is what we are talking about. We do have a post from Sean's, which I did not believe to be real, and I'm still questioning if I do believe it to be real right now. But the Lakers acquired Luka Doncic, Maxi Kleber, and Markieff Morris in exchange for Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a 2029 first round pick from the Lakers. And any Jazz fans, you guys did acquire Jalen Hood-Schifino, 2 second round picks, and $110,000 cash. That is, in my opinion, the biggest trade in NBA history, the most shocking, surprising trade in NBA history. But that is what has got the whole basketball world up in arms and going crazy, including my good friend John D here. But as you know, this is the Hoop Talk podcast, so we want to try to give you the rational, logistical analysis of said trades. But we are also fans of the game, so we are excited for this, as I think everyone who isn't a Dallas fan probably is.
Yes.
But John D, as the Lakers fan, I'm gonna ask you for the Lakers side of this. How do you feel? How do you feel as a Lakers fan? And then in terms of the actual product on the floor, how do you see this working out for the Los Angeles Lakers?
Okay, so I feel like over the past 20 hours, I've been a fan and I haven't necessarily looked at this as logically as I possibly could. But there are some instant questions that I do have about this team. I'm sure now we have the worst front court rotation in the NBA, the worst center rotation in the NBA with Jackson Hayes and an injured Christian Wood, whether you want to bring Christian Koloko up from the G League. So coming up in this trade deadline, I would definitely love to see some type of center be traded for. And just in our luck, there is a lot of centers on the market right now, whether it's Robert Williams. I've heard some rumors of Miles Turner, Nicholas Claxton. I even like Jakob Podol as somebody that could be on the market, Kelly Olynyk. There are a few centers that can come in. Walker Kessler, I don't know if he's still on the market, but that was somebody that was rumored to have ties with the Lakers. So there is still some centers that can go out and be brought in. Offensively, this offense jumps up tremendously. I think with Luka Doncic and LeBron James, a lot of people say they don't fit together due to them having the ball in their hands a lot. But I think LeBron can be a great short roll guy, a great guy that can roll to the basket, even play the dunker spot with Luka Doncic being on the perimeter. That just takes a lot of load off of LeBron, just having Luka and Austin Reeves in minutes playing the perimeter while LeBron can be a guy that cuts to the basket, plays in the post, sets screens or rolls to the baskets and makes great decisions in those situations. So I'm not going to sit here and say that we're contenders off the rip, but it's just really good to see that we have a direction post LeBron.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest. Shout out to the 360 people in here.
Yeah,
Obviously,
this is great.
big day for basketball. Subscribe if you haven't, liked the video, whatever the case. I do think this is obviously a deal for the long term. I do think Luka and LeBron is a worse fit than AD and LeBron for many reasons. The biggest one, the glaring one, is the defense. But I do think it's relevant to say that this is a year where both LeBron and Luka have played off the ball more than I think they have in a long time for LeBron and ever for Luka. Luka's time of possession for the first time since his rookie year, I believe, was outside the top 10. So he was playing off the ball a lot more this year. Dallas fans will tell you that. Sorry to bring up old memories of Luka Doncic playing basketball for your team, but Dallas fans would tell you that. But the big thing is, this is now you do have a direction for the post LeBron years. You do have a 25-year-old who, by all accounts, is a top 5 player in the NBA. Is by all accounts one of, if not the best offensive player in the NBA, and one of the best offensive players we've ever seen in their early prime. You don't say no to that trade.
You don't.
The fact that Dallas came to LA and asked, do you want Luka, is one of the craziest turns of events, I think, in NBA history. We all have the conversations. Who are the untouchable players in the NBA? You hear the same names: Jokic, Giannis, Wemby, Shea. Luka was a name that was always there. Luka's untouchable. Dallas would never trade Luka. Boy, were we wrong.
Wrong.
But I do think in the short term, I do think this has made the Lakers worse. I do think that the Lakers are not as good today as they were yesterday. But I don't think that matters. Like, I think for all intents and purposes, the Lakers have won this trade. They've won this trade. And it's rare to say that you've given up on a top 10 player in Anthony Davis, a very good young role player in Max Christie, and yet you've still come out on top in the trades in which your team has gotten worse in the short term. But that's how good Luka Doncic is now and in the future. And I do think in order to make this a success in the short term, it's a couple changes. It's going to acquire a big, for sure going to acquire a big. Maybe you get another movement shooter there. Austin Reeves has grown in that department, but do you like Austin Reeves' defense alongside LeBron and Luka? I don't know. Maybe Austin Reeves becomes expendable now. Gabe Vincent has been better as of late, so either his trade value's gone up or you find him viable as a backcourt mate to Luka. So I do think there's avenues for the Lakers to still be good in the short term. But long term, building with Luka Doncic is so much better than what they were set up to be in the post-LeBron years. Anthony Davis is 31, turning 32. He's already, as people know, he's an injury risk. I'm not going to say he's injury prone because I do think he's been quite available this year and last year. But he is an injury risk and he's a big. And they don't tend to age as well as wings and guards. So getting off a 31, soon to be 32-year-old for a player better than him, no disrespect to Anthony Davis, but I think we can all agree Luka's better than him, and 6 years younger, it's a fleece. Like, we can't say it any other way, in my opinion. It's a fleece. Like, I understand some people want to be different because they know a lot of people are going to have eyes on them. If everyone's takes on this is always going to be heard. But sometimes there's no different take about this. The Dallas Mavericks have lost this trade. And I don't think there's any other way to spin it. We're going to get into the Dallas Mavericks side of this soon, but the Dallas Mavericks have lost this trade. Anytime you trade a generational player, you probably lose the trade. Especially when that player doesn't ask to leave, hasn't made an inkling that he wants to leave, hasn't suggested that he wants to leave. Yeah, you probably lost the trade. I think the only comparable situation, no, there's no comparable situations. The only time a player of this caliber has been traded, you have to go back to Kareem and maybe Kawhi when he left San Antonio.
And then it's like
KG when he left the Timberwolves, maybe. But KG when he left the Timberwolves was different because Dallas was just coming off a finals run and they're a legitimate contender with Luka Doncic. KG was missing the playoffs. So that's different. Kawhi was coming off a year where he just played 9 games and asked to leave. So that's different. And Kareem's team sucked and he asked to leave. So even they aren't similar. KD did get traded. KD could be similar. He's not the caliber of player I think Luka is right now when he got traded from Brooklyn to Phoenix. But at least the Nets were good with KD on the floor. So that's like the only one that's compared to. But anyway, that's besides the point. For me, if you think about what the Lakers have in terms of what their roster looks like as presently constructed, We don't know what trades they're going to make. I can only assume they will be active before the deadline on the 6th.
6th, yeah, it's Thursday.
Right now, in terms of legitimate rotation players on their roster, and this is my opinion, John D, feel free to add some extra players if you disagree. Austin Reeves, LeBron James, Luka Doncic, Dorian Finney-Smith, Jared Vanderbilt. That's as far as I'm going. Legitimate NBA caliber, positive impact rotation players, and above with Luka and LeBron and Austin Reeves. I think the Lakers have legitimately 5 competent players on their roster.
Yeah, I don't think Dome Connect is there just yet. I think
Rui Hachimura, I think, is too detrimental defensively, and I'm gonna be honest, I would hope he's traded. If I'm a Lakers fan,
yeah,
I would hope Rui's traded. I think Dalton Connect is too bad defensively and too limited offensively, to where I would call him a positive impact player. I don't think they have a positive impact center on the roster. Jackson Hayes, Trey Jameson, Koloko is high energy, but once again, the impact is not really there. I think they have 5 impactful players on their roster. How concerned are you in the short term? Obviously, we understand Luka, 25. We get that. Mm-hmm. In the short term, how concerned are you about the Lakers' chances just for this season?
I think we can make a series interesting, but as currently constructed, let's say we make no moves at the deadline, this is not a team I would believe in to make a deep playoff run. I mean, as currently constructed, I would still say the Dallas Mavericks are a better team. They're deeper. They have a lot of talent over there. And their defense has, we're going to be talking about the Mavericks a little bit later, so I'm going to move on. But I think the Clippers are, as of currently constructed right now, are a better team. I think the Nuggets are still a better team as currently constructed. And the Thunder are better teams as currently constructed. But I think having an offensive pairing like LeBron James and Luka Doncic can make a series interesting against anyone, but I'm not too necessarily sold on them making a deep playoff run this year as currently constructed.
And with that being said, you still view this trade as a home run?
Oh, a home run, a grand slam. You don't think twice about this trade.
And I do think I'm obviously in agreement with you. I'd like to think the chat is also in overwhelming agreement with you. I did run a poll to asking the chat who they think won the trade. A lot of people did have the Lakers winning the trade. Some people said no one won the trade. So we're not overwhelmingly in the same boat with everyone, but pretty much no one had Dallas winning the trade, which we will get into. But we do have a lot of super chats. A lot of people want to give their input or hear our input. So I'm going to get into that now. Eddie Wing Gaming is saying free Kyrie. We will get into Dallas very soon, so thank you for that, Eddie Wing Gaming. Antoine El Hostron said most disrespected superstar of the decade. I do think that's a relevant thing, and I do want to ask. We don't need to get into Dallas a lot, but just in terms of Luka, do you view a player of Luka's caliber being traded without asking, without requesting, without implying anything, and in fact saying quite the opposite? He wants to be in Dallas. He loves Dallas. He wants to win with Dallas. Do you view it as disrespectful from the franchise that they would trade him with no warning? I'm not even telling him. Apparently, Nico Harrison texted him after the trade had already happened. Do you view that as disrespectful?
That's extremely disrespectful. You don't come across a player of Luka's talent every day, and they moved him as such. And I believe that you go into the draft hoping and praying to get a guy of Luka's caliber, his offensive caliber, and his generational talent. So to just trade him like that without a notice, and you kind of limit yourself to the options you could get back for him, that's extremely disrespectful. It's extremely disrespectful. I've never seen much like it.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I do want to bring you guys attention to something that Kevin Durant said that I do think is pertinent to the situation. I'm not going to play the clip, but I'm going to read the quote that I do think is relevant here. Kevin Durant says, it's insane, it's crazy regarding the trade. But the part that I think is relevant is players are held to a different standard of loyalty and commitment to a program, but the organizations don't get held to that same standard from the outside. And I think what KD is alluding to is that when players take their destiny into their own hands, whether that be through free agency or requesting a trade, they get maligned and criticized by fans for saying that they're not loyal or they don't want to win, or that, quite frankly, people dislike them for it. But these franchises, and we've never really seen anything like this, so I can't say all franchises, but a franchise like Dallas are able to trade a generational player without notifying him, without telling him in advance, without telling players on the roster about it, without telling the head coach. And yes, Nico Harrison is being criticized for it, but there's no consequence. Nico Harrison's not getting fired. He's still going to be there tomorrow. And we're not going to forget, but he's not going to get the same level of criticism that these players get when they take their destiny into their own hands. And I do think it's weird how we view trades in general, how trades are okay, but free agency is not. And the idea that these players, when they control their destiny, they're in the wrong. But when the GMs have control of what these players do and where they live their life, that's just the way, that's the business. That's the way it goes. I do think that is an interesting conversation to be had. Now, I do think it gets away from the basketball side of this, which is what we're all about. But I do think it's an interesting conversation and a relevant conversation to have, just maybe not today. But I do think that is a very interesting conversation. Alan R, I know he's very conflicted today. He said, as a Celtics fan, I'm so disgusted right now. The Lakers got both of my favorite players in LeBron and Luka of all time on that team. Luka FC, we move and evolve. A lot of Dallas fans have renounced their fandom of the Dallas Mavericks over this trade.
I understand.
And I will say I do understand. And Dallas, we are going to get onto you guys very shortly. And I'm not going to lie, you might not want to hear it, although you guys might be so angry at your franchise, you might want to hear it. So
yeah,
we will get to you guys very, very soon. Code Dice said Rudy got 4 picks, Mikal Bridges got 5, Luka got 1. Are you surprised that the Lakers only had to give up 1 first-round pick to get this deal done?
Amongst everything, yes. Like when you think about it, when you see the trade and you're like, oh my God, I'm surprised that we got Luka. I'm surprised Anthony Davis is gone. I'm surprised we had to give up 1 pick. Jalen Hood-Schifino, there's a lot of things that surprise you. So just giving up 1 pick, especially with all the things you could have gotten for Luka, that's extremely surprising. It's extremely surprising. And then it's in 2029. The pick has lost all its value. The second you trade Luka to the Lakers, that 2029 pick, in my opinion, doesn't have any value unless like we have some serious injury problems that season. But I just can't. I can't. I wouldn't. I don't know how to feel.
We have another depressed Mavs fan in Billowal K. Said, I am at a loss for words. Heartbreaking would be an understatement. None of this makes sense to me. I can't even begin to wrap my head around it. We are going to try and wrap our heads around the Dallas side of this because I do think a lot of people share your sentiment on why would Dallas do this.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of on that boat, but I've tried to rationalize it, and I think I have a couple explanations, but none of them I think justify this. But I do think I do have some explanations that might be interesting. Teddy Hart with a potential trade for the Lakers. He said Reeves plus fodder, so salary filler, for Grady Dick and Jakob Poeltl. I don't know how available Grady Dick is, but if Luke is available, I can't say that about anyone anymore. I'm sorry, I can't. So try. But how do you feel about a Jakob Poeltl at the 5 for the Lakers? Do you think that addresses some of the issues?
I do. Just some rebounding in size, I think would help a lot. I would love Jakob Poeltl in LA.
Billow K then also said this is organizational malpractice. NP13 with a very relevant super chat, and I wanted to ask you about this. He said Lakers clearly won the trade, but if the reports of Luka being 260 pounds are real, that's insane for a superstar player. He needs to address that now because shedding weight and then getting in shape gets harder as you age. Once again, I know you think you guys have won the trade and you're very happy. Are you in any way concerned about Luka's health, conditioning, and ability to get in shape and stay in shape based on his history and the reports about his weight right now?
I am. That is something that is concerning, being 260 pounds and now just you're going to be expected to be the leader of a franchise for probably the next decade. So seeing that at such a young age of 25 years old, that is concerning that he can't keep himself in shape. And now it looks like those injuries that he has had has been some type of his weight has been some type of relevancy to the injuries. So that is concerning. I do think maybe a change of scenery could help him with that. I know this kind of sounds like repetitive, but I think LeBron James is one of the best leaders in the NBA. I think him just putting himself or being in that environment with Luka could help him out. Now, I'm not saying that's just something that's going to happen now that Luka's with LeBron. All of a sudden, that stuff is just going to change. But I do think LeBron is one of the most disciplined athletes across all of sports. So I do think some stuff like that does kind of shed off.
Yeah, I think Luca's health and conditioning has been a very well documented thing in terms of the past and how people talk about Luca, and I think some of it's unwarranted, some of it is warranted. Um, I don't think it's a concern enough to where, once again, I don't pull the trigger on the trade.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a reasonable concern where you do begin to question the longevity of a Luka Doncic. Will he be majorly effective at 33, 34, like a LeBron James was, which is a very high bar to achieve, or even like a Kobe Bryant was in his age 34 season? These Lakers legends who got to the Lakers or were in the Lakers later in their careers. I do think you can begin to question that and say, how long do we really have Luka for? And also, you got the question of his contract, which will be coming up soon. So, how long will you actually have Luka? So there is potential for this trade to age poorly in hindsight, based on how Luka continues to play at a high level, or if he even resigns. But I do think Luka for me, these are like the past 6-8 months have been the first time in Luka's career really where he's been hurt.
Yeah.
To the point where injuries haven't really been an issue with Luka, and he's been very available. And when he is available, he plays like one of the top 5 players on the planet. So I don't think it's as much of a concern as it would be for like a Zion historically, who I actually do think is in pretty good shape right now, but a Zion historically, or maybe even the Shaq, who was dealing with a lot of injuries early on in his career and then dealt with a lot of weight problems later on. Like, I don't think it's the biggest issue, but I do think it would be one reason to maybe hesitate. But once again, when I say hesitate, it's like you might think for like 4 seconds and then you pull the trigger because it's Luka Doncic. Like, no matter how we try and rationalize this, any concerns we may have, I do think we ultimately get back to the same conclusion of you have to do this trade if you're the Lakers.
You have to.
It's very rare that a player of Luka's caliber becomes available to you. It's very, very rare. In fact, I think there's maybe a handful of times in NBA history where a player of Luka's caliber has become available. I'll go back to Kareem. Wilt became available in like 1968, or was it 69 or whenever, or when he got traded to the Sixers in 65. So like, not very often do players like this become available, and when they do, you probably have to say yes. So all the concerns, we can acknowledge them, but at the end of the day, we're going to get to the same conclusion of it doesn't change that they should have done the trade, and that's kind of where I stand on this. Let's see if we have any more Lakers super chats. Okay, drink more water. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that Luka re-signs with the Lakers? He isn't Supermax eligible, so I doubt he signs an extension right now. And he has 1 year plus a player option after this season. That's the main concern, right? As a Lakers fan, that you might only have Luka for 1 or 2 years. A, do you think Luka resigns? And B, if he doesn't, does it then become a bad trade for the Lakers? Those are my 2 questions to you.
I want to answer the second question first. I don't think I was saying this earlier. It doesn't matter if we don't get out of the first round for the next 5 years. This will never be a bad trade, in my opinion. I think a lot of people really look at the results of a trade and forget about how the trade was when it first started. Like, people always say the Paul George and Kawhi thing was a bad move. But at the time, you're having a player who was in conversation to be the best player in the league and somebody who just came off an MVP candidate type of season. This is a guy that is 25 years old, comfortably, in my opinion, a top 5 player in the NBA. And I don't even think he's entered his best seasons yet, in my opinion. I mean, I think last year may have been his best season numbers wise, but as far as on-court play, I still think there's another gear that Luka Doncic can get to. So this will never be a bad trade. Even if we have him for 2 or 3 seasons, we go to a conference finals and he ends up dipping. This will never be a bad trade to me. This is something that is like, either I take this trade or I probably lose my job if this gets out. So this will never be a bad trade. And second, I think if we just put a competent contending team around Luka Doncic, I think he'll resign. I don't think based off of what I've seen so far, Luka's the type of guy to play the free agency game. If he just has a competent team around him that's willing to compete night in and night out and put themselves in chances to win, I think he's probably going to stay with LA.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be shocked if Luka re-signs in LA. Like I think that's probably the expectation. But if he didn't, I still don't think it makes the trade poor or bad. I'd have an issue with just viewing trades in hindsight generally. But I do think at the end of the day, if Luka Doncic becomes available, even if it's for 4 months, you probably pull the trigger. So I think if you get guaranteed this season, next season, and more than likely the 27 season where he takes up his player option, you get at least 2 full seasons with Luka Doncic, which I think is already enough to probably make the trade worth it. That even at that point, I probably wouldn't view it as a negative. The only way like this could possibly like really be bad for the Lakers is if Luka's calf injury was a lot worse than Dallas were letting on. And he's just never the same player, kind of like an Isaiah Thomas to Cleveland situation.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the only way in which I think this is justifiable for Dallas. And that's the one where we're going to have to wait and see. And I highly doubt that's the reality of the situation. So I think even if Luka doesn't resign, I still think the trade was worth it. Unless what I just said is the reality of the situation, which I don't think is the case. So, like I keep saying, because once again, I don't think there's many takes you can really have on this from the Lakers' perspective, other than, yeah, there's concerns, but I still do this trade 10 times out of 10.
Yeah.
Anyone else who I think has a different idea is probably saying that just to be different so they can get their take out there. I do think that's probably just the right opinion. There's concerns. In the short term in particular, there's a lot of concerns, but I still do this trade. That's really it at the end of the day. One trade, well, not really a trade, but the trade package. Jay Hartman, Reeves and Rui, plus the 2031 pick. Who says no? So obviously there's no pick. There's no player here that you're trading for. But I will ask you, do you think Reeves, Rui, and the 2031 pick is enough to get you the front court player you need?
100%. I think that's enough because I'm not asking for someone who's like game changing. I'm not asking for a all-star caliber big man. I'm asking for someone who can come in and do a job like Jakob Poeltl, Robert Williams. If Walker Kessler becomes available, that's what I'm asking for. Somebody who can protect the paint and rebound the ball. I'm not asking for someone who is of Anthony Davis's caliber or even close to Anthony Davis's caliber. So I don't think it's going to take that much to really get a impactful starting center.
I agree. I think the Lakers can get a big before the deadline. I do think they improve their chances a whole lot. Now, I still do think the lack of depth is going to hurt them. But having a legitimate, and you don't need an elite big. You need someone who can set hard screens, roll hard, be a vertical spacer, be a rim protector, and reboundable. Now, I'm not saying that's an easy thing to find, but that's what you need. You don't need a superstar. So I do think that's very acquirable on the market. I do think Robert Williams is one that I would be looking at. Nicholas Claxton would be an interesting one. I know a lot of people talk about Miles Turner. I don't think necessarily that's perfect, especially when you look next to Luka. I do think those lob threats are probably the more valuable asset. But I do think getting a big is not only very high on the Lakers to-do list, I do think is probably probable at this point to happen. But you wanted to say something?
What about John Collins? I think John Collins has played really good this season. I don't know if I love him as a rim protector, but that's somebody that can stretch the floor, be a roller.
Offensively, I think is great. Defensively, not so much. And at this point, I think you have your 5-man rotation. I think you guys have five-man competent roster. You have 3 bad defenders and 2 good ones. And I don't think you want to add another mediocre to bad one, especially at the 5, a bad defender to that mix. So I do think Walker Kessler, Nicholas Claxton, Robert Williams would be the 3 bigs at the top of my list. Obviously, all have their concerns. Walker Kessler is just his offensive overall game in terms of how reliable do you think he is. Robert Williams, obviously the health things. Nicholas Claxton, I do think is probably the least concerning one. But I will say sometimes he just goes a bit haywire in terms of like doing weird Isaiah Stewart type things, which is like that would be my concern with Nicholas Claxton, generally speaking, and also just the size and strength and physicality able to match some of the bigs in the West. Those would be my main concerns with all of the bigs. Obviously, you're not going to get a perfect big, but I would still be looking at them. But I do think now is about the time we get into the Dallas Mavericks side of this. Obviously, the Dallas Mavericks acquired Anthony Davis and Max Christie and a pick. And it's very rare that a team gets Anthony Davis in a trade and no one seems to be excited. Very rare. So before we get all doom and gloom on Dallas, what do they have to be excited about Anthony Davis? What do they have to be excited about when they have Anthony Davis on their roster?
Well, now I just think you've gotten a lot better as a team defensively, even though I believe that this Dallas Mavericks team could have built a really good team defense. Now you've gotten a lot better on the defensive side with just, once again, having the ability to have a starting level big on the floor at all times, whether it's Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, or Anthony Davis. You have a fantastic front court rotation, probably the best in the league now. And now you add PJ Washington and Najee Marshall. You guys had so many home runs this offseason to where this team still works. You know, this team could still go win a playoff series. This team can still be one of the best playoff defenses in the league. So I know it's the not having Luka part that really is gut-wrenching for Dallas fans, but I do still believe that they can be a playoff team and maybe a comfortable 4 to 6 seed in the playoffs for the next 2 to 3 seasons with this team that they have together. So you lose some of your offense, you gain a lot in defense. Derek Lively still has some untapped potential. Now, I'm definitely not saying he's going to be Luka, but there's still something with this team, and there's still something to look forward to.
In the short term, I agree. I agree. I think in the short term, I still think Dallas are better than the Lakers are right now. In the long term, obviously, they're cooked. But I do think Anthony Davis provides a lot. You also get Anthony Davis in his natural habitat, he believes, at the 4. You are going to have legitimately 3 really quality, competent bigs. 1 elite one in Anthony Davis, 1 really good one in Derek Lively, and Daniel Gafford is definitely serviceable to the point where you have 48 minutes of quality center play in the playoffs. The flexibility you now get defensively, I do think has gone through the roof. You now have Anthony Davis, Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington, Najee Marshall, all legitimately positive defenders in certain areas. Daniel Gafford is that shot blocking presence. Derek Lively is that paint protector, rim protector. Anthony Davis is, in my opinion, still capable of being the best defender in basketball. PJ Washington, who I think has had an all defensive caliber season, especially at the wing position. Najee Marshall, who I think is a great point of attack defender, extremely high motor, picks up 94 feet, extremely aggressive on defense. Quentin Grimes, I think, doesn't bleed a whole lot of value defensively. I think he's probably at that point, he's treading water. I think he's a neutral. I think Kyrie competes on defense and is probably going to be your worst defender in the starting unit. The flexibility you get with Jason Kidd being, in my opinion, an elite defensive coach, the Mavs have the ability to be one of the 3 or 4 best defenses in the league, in my opinion, especially in the playoffs. I think that's a tremendous positive. Offensively, you get one of the best play finishers in basketball in Anthony Davis. Derek Lively was already one of the better lob threats. So was Daniel Gafford. Daniel Gafford is just really good around the rim in general. Anthony Davis is now a big who, with the spacing you have around him, with Kyrie, with Klay Thompson, with other guys out there who can knock down shots, you're now in a position where you do have someone who can get post-up touches and can collapse defenses and draws double teams as a big that they didn't have before. Then you also get the flexibility of 2. Well, AD's not a 7-footer, but you get what I mean. 2 7-footers out there. So I do think Dallas in the short term have got not better than they were with Luka, but they're better than the Lakers are today. And I do think they can still contend in the West this year and next year. That's probably where I run out of the positives. Yeah. Now, I want to bring you guys to some things that Nico Harrison has said. The first thing I want to bring up to is this quote where he said, "The future to me is 3 to 4 years from now. The future 10 years from now, they'll probably bury me and J Kidd by then, or we'll bury ourselves." So what he's saying here is that when he says this is a win now trade for now and in the future, he's not talking about 10 years from now. He's saying by the time that 2029 pick from the Lakers comes about, that's as far as we're looking in the future. We're not looking to 2030 and beyond. our now and future is from now till 2029. That's what he means when he says they're good for the future. That short-sighted approach is really throwing me off. Especially when it's not a trade that I think guarantees you a title.
Yeah.
Now, if this was a trade that guaranteed you a title, I think the short-sighted approach is perfectly fine. But when you only have a trade that arguably gives you a lesser chance than the roster you had before, albeit you still have a chance, but a lesser chance than the one you had before, I don't think you can afford to be short-sighted. And then the second quote he said that really threw me off was this one. He said, I believe that defense wins championships. I believe that getting an all-defensive center, an all-NBA player with a defensive mindset gives us a better chance. And then you see we're built to win now and in the future. We've already expressed what the future is to him. But defense wins championships. I think we can all agree. Great defense gives you a better chance of winning. My question is, have the Dallas not shown that they can be a great defense even with Luka?
That's what, yeah.
Last year, were the Dallas Mavericks not an elite defense, especially in the postseason? Last year, was their defensive rating against the Boston Celtics, the series in which everyone, rightfully so, spoke about Luka's defense and his effort? Was their defensive rating against the Celtics not better than anyone else in the postseason? Now, some of that, 5-game sample size, shooting variance, I understand it. Some of it was Jason Kidd, amazing game plan defensively. Some of it, like I said, was just shooting variance. But the idea that you can't build an elite defense around Luka Doncic, or the idea that you wouldn't be able to win a championship because of Luka Doncic's defensive deficiencies, I think is so unfounded based off the fact that I've seen teams with bad defensive backcourt players or with bad defenders win and have elite defenses in the process. You go back to 2023, the Denver Nuggets had an elite postseason defense with Nikola Jokic as the man in the middle of that defense. It's even harder to have a great defense when the worst defender on your team is your center.
Yeah.
And the Nuggets managed to do it. The year before, the Warriors won off the back of an elite defense with Steph Curry as their best player. Once again, another non-good defender. It's been done. The Warriors built a dynasty with a bad defensive guard, a mediocre defensive guard before the Curry stands come get mad at me. It's been done. Even the Dallas Mavericks, the only championship in their history was a team built defensively slanted around an offensive maestro at the 4 in Dirk Nowitzki. The only time the Dallas Mavericks have had any sort of success has been building defensive units around offensive generational players, Dirk Nowitzki and Luka Doncic. So the formula has been successful throughout NBA history and in the Dallas Mavericks history. So the idea that defense was what led you to trade in Luka for Anthony Davis, I either don't buy it or Nico Harrison is incompetent. And I don't know which one is the correct answer, but one of them is the answer. He's either lying and there's something else, or he is bad at his job. Right now, because I don't want to project and assume that Luke has done something behind the scenes without any evidence, I'm going to go with the one that the evidence is showing me, and that's Nico Harrison is bad at his job. So that's where I'm going. He's bad at his job. Now, I got some super chats from some Dallas fans. Someone changed their name to I Hate My Life. He said, dumbass Nico traded a 25-year-old star for a 31-year-old play finisher who can't shoot for defense when we already have 2 rim protectors. It's not fair. Now, while I understand the disappointment, I do think categorizing Anthony Davis as a 31-year-old play finisher who can't shoot is kind of disingenuous. I do think Anthony Davis is a top 10 player in the association.
Yeah.
I do think he's one of the most talented players in the NBA and one of the most impactful players in the NBA. And I do think Anthony Davis is going to help the Dallas Mavericks a lot. Obviously, not as much as Luka was going to help you for the next 10 years. But I do think he's going to help you a lot. But with that being said, I still would never do this trade.
Never.
But I want to ask you, before I get into these next super chats, in the playoffs, the Dallas Mavericks, as presently constructed, so Kyrie, Najee Marshall, Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, Anthony Davis, Quentin Grimes, Jaden Hardy, etc., etc., etc. Max Christie, who's also in their rotation now, a very
Yeah.
good point of attack defender, can knock down spot up threes, and I think he's being glossed over in all of this. How many teams do you take over the Mavericks just this year in a playoff series?
In a 7-game playoff series, I'm pretty comfortable with OKC and Denver. I don't know how comfortable I am with LA, but I think I would pick LA in that series. And I'm LA Clippers, by the way, LA Clippers. But as for Houston and Memphis, Phoenix, I don't know how far I would go with them saying that they can beat that they can beat Dallas fully healthy. So that's probably the 3 teams I have stamped. And I would even give Dallas a chance against the Clippers, but the Thunder and the Nuggets is where I draw the line.
I agree with the Thunder. I would have some pushback about the Nuggets. And outside of that, I do think Dallas are not maybe not favored, but I do think they can beat anyone else. The reason I have pushback for the Nuggets is I think Denver are just worse than they were last year.
Yeah.
And with the shooting and the lack thereof that Denver have in terms of volume and consistent floor spaces, whether that be Aaron Gordon, Russell Westbrook, or Christian Brown, the formula of put a big on Jokic and have an elite roamer play the baseline, clog up driving lanes, plug up those cuts, has shown to be successful when you look at the Minnesota Timberwolves series last year, especially when you have players who can apply consistent ball pressure to a Jamal Murray. Dallas have that. They have the Najee Marshall for that point of attack defense. They have the PJ Washington for that strength and that big body to put on a Jamal Murray. They have the 2 bigs who can eat up minutes and fouls and play physical with Jokic and Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively. And then they have, in my opinion, maybe the best roamer in the sport in Anthony Davis, who can now roam off of Russell Westbrook, roam off of an Aaron Gordon, roam off of Christian Brown, whoever's out there, and can really mess up the Denver offense. And then on the other side of the ball, I do understand very clear offensive concerns. You've now lost one of the best offensive engines, if not the best on-ball offensive engine in the NBA. And you really haven't replaced him with anything close to that in terms of an offensive engine. So the offense is going to look different. But my idea of, can the Dallas Mavericks have a defense elite enough to where their offense only has to be average to slightly above average to where they can win series? And my answer to that is yes. I do think the Dallas Mavericks can be competent enough offensively to where they can win series off the strength of their defense. Whether that's because they're just getting out and running because of their defense, or because their defense is so stifling that it, like, obviously series don't go this way, but let's say hypothetically, if the Dallas Mavericks have a 110 defensive rating in a series, all they need is a 111 offensive rating to win. Now, obviously, like in a series, like if you have a great game and you blow a team out and have a 128 offensive rating, and then you hold them to a 106, that's still only 1 win. So, like, obviously, the offensive, you can win a series while having a worse defensive rating than the other team. You can, because of blowouts and stuff. But what I'm saying is, on a game-by-game basis, whether you win 128, 114, or you win 93, 86, at the end of the day, all you got to do is win the game 4 times. If Dallas can beat teams off the strength of their defense and their offense can just tread water, I do think they can win. Now I understand the concerns people have. Oh, Kyrie is a number 1 offensive option. I've always thought like the number 1 offensive option thing has always been kind of overstated. And I think now more than ever it really is. I do think it is more of a team thing than ever. And I do think Kyrie can generate average offensive results for you. Just this season, the Dallas Mavericks have a 117.8 offensive rating with Kyrie on the floor in the time without Luka Doncic. So there's no Luka on the floor, and this is excluding garbage time. So in the minutes that means something, they have a 117.8 offense. Now, that's not elite offense by really any stretch, but it's solid. It's competent offense. You now add Anthony Davis to that, so definitely helps the offense. Now, the minutes without Luka, Kyrie's generating 117. You now add Anthony Davis into that. That only helps the offense. The offense doesn't get worse than it was without Luka when you add Anthony Davis. He's still a great lob finisher. He's still a great finisher. He still has that dimension as a post-up player. And he can knock down the mid-range a solid clip to where if you're running down on time in a possession, you can give the ball to Anthony Davis, go generate a shot. So I do think that offense is going to be fine enough, especially in the regular season. Now, the postseason, when teams load up on Kyrie, how do you deal with that? Do you have the adequate pieces to play out of those advantages, those 4-on-3s, those traps? That's where we wait to see. And that's why I'm concerned about a series against OKC. But against anyone else, either I don't think they have the personnel to take guys like Kyrie and Anthony Davis out of a series, or I do just trust Dallas's defense more than I trust the opposing team's defense. So for me, still, I think Dallas are the second best team in the West. I had them as the second best team in the West pre-trade, where if they were healthy with Luka, second best team in the West. I still think they're the second best team in the West. Just because of the matchup difficulties they provide with their size, because I only view them as needing to have an average offense. It's just the issue is past 2026, I think they're going to be a terrible team. So that's why I think they lost. But Teddy Hart did kind of allude to this with his super chat. He said, I think the Mavs got a tad better just due to balance. Kai, Clay, PJ, AD, and Gafford lineup can absolutely contend right now. You can't double because you'll either give up a 3 or a lob, plus God-level post defense and rebounding. Now, this is where you put the pressure on Kyrie. Is he a good enough playmaker to read and react to what defenses are inevitably going to throw at him with no real release valve like a Luka Doncic, to where he's going to see these aggressive coverages? Can he get the ball into the short corner, into the short roll instantly? Can he read these traps? Can he find these lobs? Is he going to be tunnel visioned? Is his shot selection going to be questionable? Is he going to be able to generate good shots against these type of defenses? That's where you're going to have questions. And I do think some games you're going to see Kyrie is going to just slice it apart. And you're probably going to win because Kyrie's going to go crazy. And there's going to be some games where Kyrie's just not going to have it going, or he's going to make bad decisions, and you're going to have to win off the strength of your defense. I don't think it's going to be plain sailing. I don't think it's just going to be smooth sails. But I do think it's possible. So in the short term, I do think Dallas have a chance to win. And I do think, I wouldn't say they got better, but I do think in terms of their standings in the West, I do think they're in the same spot. So in the short term, I don't think it's a terrible trade. It's just once you start extending the time.
Yeah, the more the years go on.
Yeah, the more years you'll realize how much of a bad trade this is. But like this year, if Dallas go further in the playoffs than the Lakers, there will be some people saying, oh, Dallas won the trade. Luka was a bad trade. The Lakers never should have gone, blah, blah, blah. Those people are going to be saying that stuff for clicks and for interactions, or because they just don't think.
Yeah.
So I implore you, don't overreact. If Dallas have a better postseason run than the Lakers, they still did not win the trade. The only way I would consider it, and I want to ask you, if Dallas were to win a championship this year or next year, even if Luka plays until he's 35 and he's a great player and he's one of the all-time great offensive engines, would you then be able to justify the trade from a Dallas perspective?
I think winning a championship in a lot of people's eyes justifies a lot of trades, because in the end goal, your goal is to win a championship. And if they were to win a championship this year or next year, I don't think the consensus would be they won the trade, but it would be, you know what? I think the move, now I can understand the move a little bit more, because bringing in this level of defense, which I think is going to be better with now than it was, and say they were able to win a championship, I think that was the adjustment that they needed, would be better to say. But to say they won, I wouldn't necessarily say that.
Okay, so I'll add an extra layer to that question. If Dallas were to repeat the next 2 years and LA never win a championship with Luka, then did they win the trade?
I would say yes. Repeating, especially if they're the first team to repeat without since the KD Warriors, I would say they won this trade. But then again, I would also say that Dallas's front office probably had a better team and put a better situation to win in that situation, instead of the Lakers putting the proper team around Luka to win, and they weren't able to do it.
Okay. The reason I asked that is because I think if they were to repeat, I do think the argument could be made that they also could have won with Luka in the same situation.
Yeah.
So it's like we didn't need to trade Luka for these championships. We were already that close. So that's why I asked the question. But obviously, that's all just talking down the line 10 years. We can't project all of that stuff. We have to wait and see. But Teddy Hart did add on to his previous super chat saying, also, the team defense got better by subtracting Luka. Kyrie and AD can approximate Luka's offensive production. I'm going to ask you about that. But now there are no defensive holes. Everyone left is at least an average level defender. Do you think Kyrie and AD can approximate Luka's offensive value?
No. I don't. And Luka is probably going to be one of the best offensive players we've seen this generation. And I think Kyrie and Anthony Davis can do some things that can really generate above average type of offense. But with Luka, with him being on the floor, you always have a chance to be the best offense in the league. I think Luka can generate the best offense in the league consistently. And I just don't think Kyrie and AD can pair up to make that type of value offensively. That's not me saying that they're below average offensive players, but once again, we talked about the playmaking gap with those two players, the way that Luka is able to see the floor and create looks for players around him, the way he's able to collapse defenses and find open guys, to where we kind of saw that it was just a heliocentric offense with Luka Doncic and spread pick and rolls with spacers in every corner, to where Luka would have it on the right wing, Daniel Gafford or Derek Lively a set of screen, and now we have Clay, Kyrie, PJ just spread out across the floor, to where if you blitz Luka, now you're in a rotation situation. And now you have shooters all around. So I think Luka just generates a higher level of offense than Kyrie and AD can really get to.
I think even if Kyrie and AD could approximate Luka's value on offense, let's say I did grant that just for the sake of argument, I don't think that means anything, because what made the Mavs so dangerous was that you had Luka's offensive value plus Kyrie.
Yeah.
Now you're asking Kyrie and AD to just approximate what Luka did, who's approximating what Kyrie was doing next to what Luka was providing. So even if Kyrie and AD combined could approximate Luka's offensive value, Luka by himself as one player was providing that value. And then you got what Kyrie was providing offensively on top of what Luka was providing. Now you're asking Kyrie and AD combined to just approximate Luka, which means you're losing the value of Kyrie in terms of the equation of this offensive value pie. Now, I guess the counter argument would be, okay, we don't have the added Kyrie value on offense, but we do now have the Anthony Davis value on defense that we didn't have before. And I do think that's where this really gets interesting. How much better is Dallas's defense from last postseason, or just the theoretical defense they would have had this year when fully available? How much better is that defense now? Are they maybe not an OKC level defense? Are they a Houston level defense? Are they an Orlando level defense? Are they a Clippers level defense? Are they in that group? Are they in that elite tier of defenses that I would say is maybe 5 teams deep? I'd probably say Boston, Houston, Orlando, the Clippers, and OKC. Probably the 5 best defenses in the league. Are the Mavs now in that group in terms of a defensive team?
I would say pretty comfortably, and a lot of things that I look at as a defense, when I look at some of these top tier defenses in the league, I look at your versatility with what lineups you can put out there to kind of stop the opposing lineup with it, whether they run small or whether they run a double big type of lineup offensively. So I look at your roster versatility. I look at the fact that how many competent bigs do you have on the roster, to where if one of them kind of get in foul trouble, can you put in another starting level big to replace them? Because we saw in the playoffs last year, Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively were running in like 6-minute spurts in the playoffs. It's like, okay, we're going to start Gafford this game. He's going to play the 6 minutes. Then we're going to let Lively go, and they're just going to keep going. So you now add Anthony Davis into that fold, where if you're going against a Jokic, you can use a double big lineup. If you're going against OKC, you can have Najee Marshall play next to AD, or you can have PJ play next to Derek Lively. And I think the versatility, the rebounding, the rim protection, the switchability they're going to be able to have on the perimeter, I think all that factors into them being a top 5 defense, especially in the postseason. I think they're going to be top 5 once they really figure out a scheme and put it all together. And I think coaching matters as well. You alluded to Jason Kidd being one of the best defensive minds as a coach in the NBA. So once they start building those schemes and they start getting more comfortable with each other, they start communicating more, I think they have the talent to be a top 5, top 4 defense in the postseason.
So do I. That's where I guess I'm high on them in the short term. But shout out to the 800 people watching currently. I know you guys wanted to hear some people's thoughts on this trade, and I hope we're giving you more than just clickbaity reactions. So I hope maybe not insight, but just a perspective on the game, like on the court, how this is going to play out more than just, oh my God. So hopefully that's what you're here for, and I hope you're enjoying it. If you are, like the video. But I do think there's a super chat here from MP13 that is a very interesting perspective that none of us have brought up, and I don't know if other people have brought up. NP13 said, the Mavs front office is out of their minds if they think any meaningful player is ever going to sign with them again after this situation. And I never thought about that.
I think that's really
that him sending that super chat, that is the first time I've ever thought about that. I don't think anyone wants to sign with Dallas anymore. No marquee free agents, no superstars, whoever that may be, whoever the big superstar free agent in the future is going to be. If they can treat a player, they didn't technically draft him, but if they can treat a player they drafted who grew into one of the best offensive players in NBA history, and they can trade him. It's not just that they traded him, it's that they didn't tell him beforehand. They didn't notify him, hey, we're exploring a trade. They didn't notify him when the trade was going down, hey, you might be going to the Lakers. After the trade goes through, they text him. They don't call him. If you remember, Tim Connolly, when he traded Karl Anthony Towns, he went to Cat's house and told him that, hey, we're dealing you to the Knicks, Julius Randle, blah, blah. They told him. Luka finds out by a text, and he's the best player a franchise has had since Dirk. Arguably, for some people, he's a better player than Dirk was. And if he stayed, he would have been the greatest player in franchise history. And also, the bigger part of this, Luka Doncic has now lost out on over $100 million because he's been traded and he's no longer Supermax eligible. So not only did you disrespect him in terms of how you handled the trade and didn't tell him, you also affected his pockets. Why would a marquee free agent want to go to the Dallas Mavericks? What's the incentive now if this is how they can treat the best player they've had since Dirk Nowitzki? What would entice these players to want to go sign in Dallas? That's an interesting perspective that I never thought about prior to MP13 sending that super chat. And that's not me saying that no free agent is ever going to go there. Maybe there is someone who just wants to live in Dallas. Like maybe those players exist. But I do think it does affect their standing in negotiations. And these players, like the players always talk about, this is a fraternity, that it's a brotherhood. I know they're aware that this was bad on the part of the Mavericks. I can't remember who the reporter was. It might have been Brian Windhorst. He said he got a text from an NBA All-Star saying, do you know how much this means the Mavericks must have hated Luka? Yeah. Because they understand that in this business, if you're that level of player, you're usually in the know about these type of things. Normally you just never get traded. If you're this level of player, you just won't get traded unless you ask for it. But the idea that the Mavs would disrespect to Luka in such a way, I don't think that sits right with the players' community.
You can see, like, off the reactions of Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, when they were asked about it. It's just that type of reputation sticks, you know, like if it's like somebody you drafted, took your team to a finals, had you guys in playoff contention. The second he walked in the door, you traded him off. You basically cut out $100 million in his contract, and you didn't even let him know. Like things like that, I think gets separated so much between fans and the players. You know, players kind of hold front offices to the same loyalty that they hold the other players to. I think fans don't look at it that way. So it's like, you don't necessarily think about it until it happens to your team. You don't think about, oh, this front office is kind of shaky and they don't really pay their guys, or they always trade their guys off. You know, you don't think about that until it happens to your team. And I'm sure Dallas fans weren't coming into today or coming into this weekend thinking that this is something their organization would do, or they could find a logical explanation for something like this to happen.
We spoke about the Lakers side of this. We spoke about the Dallas side of this. Now, I do want to just get through everyone's super chats, answer any questions that people have in terms of what they're sending in super chats. So if you do have any questions that you want me or John to answer, or just thoughts on the trades, now is the time to send through super chats. We are going to get through all of them. We're going to start here with Breezy. He said, if they flip their pick like Phoenix did, they are set. I believe he's talking about the Lakers. So you have one pick, right?
We have 2031.
And you need a big, and you
Yeah.
need depth. Unfortunately, you can't turn. I think what he's saying, if they flip their picks, I think because Phoenix turned their one pick that they had into
It's a
three.
3. Yeah.
Do you believe something like that is on the card for the Lakers so that they can have 3 picks that they can attach and get multiple trades? Or do you think they're trying to get that one marquee big man that they need? Which one is more likely to you?
I think they're possibly going to try and get that big that they would like to get, because I think the Lakers, they definitely have won, in my opinion, they still won this trade, but now it's like they're still in a weird spot, because now we have this top 5 franchise guy that we have to build around, and we have a very small amount of assets to where this 2031 pick could be used. And then what's after that? Do we trade Reeves? Do we trade Rui? So I think moving that pick is almost necessary if you want to contend over the next few years to keep Luka as happy as you possibly can. I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it. You have the talent to. I think if you have the talent and you know for sure that the guy you have in your locker room or playing on your floor every night can get you to a championship, I think you'd be aggressive.
Yeah, I think first priority is just a big. However
Yeah.
that comes about, whether that's you flipping the picks and turning it into multiple, or it's just you sending out the pick for the big you want, whoever that may be, Robert Williams, Claxton, Kessler, a new big that no one's really thought about, whoever it may be. I do think that's the first priority. But I do think the Lakers have to be active in the next 4 days or however long until the deadline. Because right now, as presently constructed, they aren't doing anything this season. And at the end of the day, you still do have the oldest player in the NBA who is still a really good player. So you still want to try and compete while that player is on your roster. And I think when you also have a top 5 player in the NBA, usually you want to compete when you have that too. You have both of them. So the timeline is now, it's urgent in the short term, but also you want to make sure you're building around Luka the correct way, where you're not wasting years when he's 27, 28, trying to then build the roster when you could have started doing it now. So I'm very hot take. Keep an eye on the Lakers all the way up until the deadline, because this is not the last move they're going to make. I can assure you this is probably the biggest move they're going to make, unless they do end up trading LeBron. But I can't even be surprised if anything happens at this point. So maybe this won't be the biggest trade. I don't know. Maybe Wemby's getting moved to Brooklyn at some point. I don't know. But Breezy followed that up with saying 5 for 229 is crazy. And now he's a free agent. The Spurs could feast. That is the concern, that you do just lose Luka after a few years. I'm inclined to believe he'd probably stay. But at the end of the day, you can never predict those type of things. So it's hard. I'm not gonna predict that he's gonna stay, or say, oh, it's guaranteed. We never know. But that is the concern. That is for sure the concern. But at the end of the day, once again, even if he does leave, in hindsight, you still do the trade. It is what it is. You do the trade. MBRK the Great asked, how important do you think it is that the Mavs are under the luxury tax now? Do you think owners are cheap? And thoughts on a potential move to Vegas? I mean, the thoughts on the money side of it is, long term, I understand the money side of it because Luka was eligible for the 345 million. But in the short term, Anthony Davis is going to be making like 72 million in a few years, or 62 million in a few years. So in the short term, AD going to be making a hell of a lot of money too. I know Kyrie's a free got a player option for this year.
Yeah.
So you either have to retain Kyrie by giving him an extension for a lot of money, which ultimately puts you back in a similar situation, or you let Kyrie go, and then what happened to the win now idea? So like financially, I don't know how much Dallas are benefiting, if I'm being honest. I don't think this wasn't a Julius Randle Cat situation where you can see the clear financial differences. Cat was tied down for a long time. Julius Randle has a player option after one season, and if you don't like it, you can either trade him, get him off the books, and you can start fresh with your young players, and you don't have a lot of money tied down in players you don't want it tied down to. The Dallas Mavericks don't have that situation. So that's where, I don't think financially this was the move. Like, I don't think it was a move done financially. And I refuse to believe it was a move done because defense wins championships. So
like
I'm trying to rationalize Nico Harrison's thoughts. In my opinion, I do just think it's a ridiculously stupid trade, and I do think he's incompetent. But I wouldn't justify it. Not justify it. I wouldn't try and explain it with financial implications. Personally, I would try and explain it with the idea of trying to build a top 5 defense and then have a competent offense. And also maybe just so the concerns with Luka in terms of long term, is he going to be worth making 70 million 6 years from now based on how he's conditioned in his health? Those would be the ways I would try and rationalize it, while also still saying I think it's a stupid trade. Any rationalization of the trade I may have is not me justifying the trade. I want to make that abundantly clear. Me trying to explain why I think it happens is not me saying it should have happened that way because of that. So I want to make that clear so no one can misinterpret what I'm saying and saying I'm justifying the trade or I think it was a good trade for Dallas. I do not think it was a good trade for Dallas. I'm just trying to understand why they may have done it. Bob said, this is not incompetency. They literally worked with one another without talking to any other team. Clear as day. So he's saying it's collusion. He's saying they were shady business. Now that's what I believe he's saying, shady business.
Yeah. I think they did have some type of relationship before this trade. I think they had a relationship through Kobe, Rob Pelinka, and the Mavs GM. He's slipping my head already. But yeah, I think they had some type of relationship. And I saw a report that said if they would bring this trade to the Lakers and they knew it wouldn't get out to the media. So even then, I can't wrap my head around not trying to really look around the league and see what you can get, because I'm like, I can think about 5 teams minimum that could give you a better package for Luka Doncic than Anthony Davis, Max Christie in a first round pick. Like, you couldn't have gotten anything you wanted from San Antonio, from OKC.
Well, not anything.
Not Wemby, but other than that, you could have gotten a haul of firsts. You can have gotten me. I would have given you Castle and Vassell. You can have both.
But if the Mavs want to win now, do they want first? Like, I think, and this is why you have to look at it from their perspective. And once again, not condoning what they did, but if their idea is we want to still try and win this season, the only logical explanation, and defense wins championships, you got to go off their line of thinking. The only logical upgrades on Anthony Davis is Giannis and maybe Wemby. In terms of win now and the future, you got Wemby. We all know, like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm still confident saying Wemby's untouchable.
Yeah.
Everyone else, I don't know anymore. I'm gonna be honest. But Wemby, untouchable. So we know that wasn't happening. The report was that the Mavs called one other team about offering Luka and they said no. I don't know if I believe that, because Nico Harrison said he only spoke to the Lakers. So that's 2 differing reports, and one is right from Nico Harrison. But maybe he's just saying that because he doesn't want it to be announced that he got rejected on this. So I would assume if it was one other team, I would assume that team was the Bucks, and he asked about Giannis. And then the only other one is like maybe Joel Embiid, but I doubt they would do that based on the injury history. And I'm being honest. If they did call and offer Luka Doncic for Joel Embiid and the Sixers said no, they're more incompetent than the Mavericks.
Yeah, they're worse. They're absolutely
so
worse.
I don't think it's the Sixers. So I think the only other team would have been the Bucks. So if you're talking about what the Dallas's goal was, alleged goal, Anthony Davis is the second best option they could have got, realistically. So I don't like, if they wanted to be stupid, which they very clearly did by trading Luka, they got the second best thing they could have got, which is Anthony Davis. Everything else would have been a very clear worse package based on the goals they set out when approaching this trade. Now, the goals they set out when approaching the trade was stupid. The fact they approached the trade was stupid. But based on that, the only upgrade they could have got over Anthony Davis was Giannis. So they got the second best deal possible, I guess. And plus, you add Max Christie to that. Which is, I think, a very valuable piece, which is going to go under the radar, but elite spot-up shooter, very good point of attack defender, another body you can throw at these elite guards in the Western Conference in the postseason. So, like, in the short term, once again, I think it's not the worst thing in the world. It's just, once you go more than 2 seasons, it's cooked. Amar with a super chat. Luka had 4 years of Dwight Powell as a center, and now he has to have Jackson Hayes. I'm gonna end it all. I'm fairly confident in saying Jackson Hayes will never be Luka's starting center. I don't think Luka's going to play before the deadline, and I think the Lakers will have a new center before the deadline.
Yeah.
So I think whoever the starting center is will not be Jackson Hayes. I'm fairly confident in saying that. So he won't be subjected to that unless that big gets hurt. But yes, I think that is the most glaring need. I think everyone's alluding to that. The defense, and in particular the front court depth, is the biggest concern for the Lakers. But we'll see how they address that. Anime Lecture Hall said, as a Nets fan, it's crazy that the Lakers dodge another rebuilding dark period. Hashtag scared of the grind.
I'm terrified of it.
Yeah, it is. You look at the history of the Lakers, right? You got George Mikan before they even become the Los Angeles Lakers. Then you go get Jerry West in the draft, Elgin Baylor, 2 of the top 5 players from the 60s. You then go get Wilt Chamberlain, the second or best player from the 60s. You then go through a little rough time. Gail Goodrich is your star. Yeah. You then trade Gail Goodrich for the pick that turns into Magic Johnson. You then also trade for Kareem, the best player from the 70s. Magic, arguably the best player of the 80s. You also get James Worthy, if that helps. Yeah, then you go through a dark period in the 90s. Oh, no. What will we do? Oh, I know. We'll sign Shaq in free.
Yeah, we'll go get Shaq.
So, oh, no. We dealt with 4 years of tough times. Oh, here you go. Shaquille O'Neal. We also draft Kobe Bryant. So when Shaq leaves, guess what we have? Arguably the best player in the league. Kobe's right there. Then Kobe leaves. Oh, God. 3 seasons of tough times?
Hey, guess who's here now?
LeBron James. Oh, wow. We got LeBron James. Oh, LeBron doesn't have enough help. Oh, Anthony Davis. Here you go. Oh, LeBron James is now the oldest player in the NBA. What are we going to do after LeBron James? Oh, I know. Luka Doncic. Like, you guys ever gonna have just 10 years of tough luck, like ever at any point?
I hope we don't. No. I hope we don't. I'm confident in my team, man. I'm confident.
Lakers fans can't talk about hardship. That's what I'm saying. they can't talk about hardship. It doesn't exist for them. But if I'm a Lakers fan, I would be ecstatic right now. All jokes aside, I do think this is an amazing trade for the Lakers. And I know a lot of fan bases wishes it was their franchise that was able to acquire Luka Doncic. But it's crazy that the Lakers just seemingly are always amazing, or always have that face of the NBA level player. So shout out to the Lakers for managing that. Snowbirds Sneakers. Next 2 to 4 years, what team comes out with a ring or a finals appearance? Dallas or LA? Now, I don't think it's a guarantee for either one of them. But if I had to guess which one is more likely, I would say Dallas. What's your opinion?
Within the next 2 to 4 years, I think the Lakers catch up. I think the Lakers are a championship contender as early as next year. Like, to be completely honest, if they can build the proper team around a top 5 player in Luka Doncic, I think we're a championship contender. I don't think, and I think they understand the urgency as well. Like, I don't think they're just going to sit on their hands with a top 5 player playing for them. So I think their urgency starts as early as next season. And comparing that to Dallas, who I think I would say LA. I would really say LA. I think I would say LA. But then if I think about it, Dallas does have the more concrete team right now. But then again, I'm gonna stick with my team.
Yeah, the more you say it, I think LA is a valid answer. Like, it's not gonna take a lot. You get defenders, a lob threat, and maybe a secondary scorer. And seeing how easy it was for them to get Luka.
Yeah, let's call up Zach LaVine.
Next thing I know, it's gonna be Austin Reeves, and all of a sudden you're getting Wemby. Like, I don't know. So I probably would change my answer to the Lakers 2 to 4 years down the line. So we'll see. Eleanor said his statue was supposed to be next to Dirk's.
Now it's gonna be next to Kobe's.
I will ask. Jersey retirement
for the Mavericks?
Yeah.
If they traded him like this, I don't think they're retiring no jersey, man. I just don't. That belongs right next to Kobe's. It belongs right next to Kobe's.
I mean, 6 years, second best player in the franchise history. Your team has 3 finals appearances. Luka's directly responsible for one of them. amazing peak, 5-time All NBA first team. If Vince Carter can get his jersey retired for the Nets, why can't Luka Doncic get his jersey retired for the Mavericks?
I don't think it's because of the play. Like, trust me, I don't think it's because of the play. I just think the way this relationship ended, like, I'm sure Luka Doncic is going to want to bust the Dallas Mavericks every time he plays them. Every time. Because Luka wanted to be there. He wanted to play his whole career there. He loved this situation with Kyrie and the team he had around him. I don't necessarily think it's because of play. If it's just because of play, they're like, okay, I can understand that. But with everything going on and how just recklessly they moved Luka without telling him, I don't know if they're gonna retire it. By the way, he did just make a goodbye post on Instagram. I haven't read it yet, but I saw it.
I mean, it's going to be the typical thank you for everything. Always love Dallas, the fans, yada, yada, yada. It's not going to say anything crazy. It's not going to be like, oh my God, how could they treat me like this? So shout out to Luka. But obviously, we understand that it's not going to say anything ridiculous. So it's not really worth overreacting. And I'm looking at the history of Dallas Mavericks. They have 4 jerseys retired. Dirk is obviously the most marquee one. The other 3 are Rolando Blackman, Brad Davis, and Derek Harper. Now, respectfully. Respect. I'm not even going to finish the sentence. Respectfully.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Respectfully. Joe Ogunbode.
Agunbody.
I tried.
Agunbody.
It hurts me that now Bron won't get to number 5 for sure. Well, I think it's reasonable to assume Bron either retires this season or next season.
Yeah.
So the window is small.
Very
They
small.
either got to win it this year or next year. But do you think the window's closed entirely for just the next 2 seasons?
No. I actually think, and I'm a guy that thought the window was closed before this Luka trade. I actually think, they cracked it a little bit. I think they cracked it a little bit. I thought the window was closed. I'm like, you know what? We're probably going to be a playoff team for the next 2 seasons. We may win a series if we get lucky with the matchups, But now I truly believe this year we're going to see how this works in the playoffs. Next year we're going to build a team and we can truly be a championship contender. And it's going to have to be a good team because there's some really good teams in the West. So, and I just don't think they're just all going to stay the same. I think a lot of these teams are going to get better. I think the Spurs, the Timberwolves, the Rockets, all these teams are going to get better. So
I am going to put Luka's post on the page on the screen because I do believe people want to see it. I'm going to read it out. Dear Dallas, 7 years ago, I came here as a teenager to pursue my dream of playing basketball at the highest level. I thought I'd spend my career here, and I wanted so badly to bring you a championship. The love and support you all have given me is more than I could have ever dreamed of. For a young kid from Slovenia coming to the US for the first time, you made North Texas feel like home. In good times and bad, from injuries to the NBA final, your support never changed. Thank you, not only for sharing my joy in our best moments, but also for lifting me up when I needed it most. To all the organizations I've worked with throughout the Dallas community, thank you for letting me contribute to your important work and join you in bringing light to those who need it. As I start the next part of my basketball journey, I am leaving a city that will always feel like a home away from home. Dallas is a special place, and Mavs fans are special fans. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, Luka. So, it was just going to be a long thank you. But it was heartfelt. I will say that it was heartfelt. And it kind of just makes it feel a little bit more real, I guess, is the biggest difference. It makes it feel a little bit more real. I will also put this on the screen, I guess, because it's quite interesting. He said, grateful for this amazing opportunity. Basketball means everything to me. And no matter where I play the game, I'll do so with the same joy. Oh, Jesus. I'll do so with the same joy, passion, and goal to win championships. So he's excited for his new chapter in LA.
That's good to see. Come in. We're excited for you too, Luka. We're excited for you too. We're going to embrace it.
Yeah. Dallas fans, I know you probably shed a tear while I was reading that or when you read it individually, but That makes it feel more real. I will say that. That like kind of like we got 777 viewers in here. Coincidence? I don't know. But like that made it feel more real. I will say, like, it's kind of like settling in now that Luka actually was traded. Terry with two dads, we got a few more super chats. Said when the news broke, I was already wondering why Low was streaming so late. But when I clicked on and saw my screen, my jaw dropped. If someone made this trade in my league, they'd be called crazy. I know I've seen people on Twitter trying that trade on 2K, and the Mavs GM, you're asking to trade someone who I consider untouchable. So it's very interesting just seeing that happen. But yeah, I definitely didn't believe it. Actually, let's do that. I'm gonna say where I was while the news broke and what I was doing, and then John D, you can say the same. I was playing 2K. I was actually in the builder at the time, making my 99 rebound build. And then I was in the Discord talking to the people I normally play rec or pro-am with. And someone comes in asking if Shams was hacked. I don't have Twitter notifications on because that would be unbearable. So I hear was Shams hacked, and I go on Twitter. I look at Shams. And I see the tweet, obviously, the infamous tweet. Breaking.
It's got like 100 million views now.
Anthony Davis and blah blah blah. So I see it, and if anyone follows me on Twitter, Mars Talk Sports, I initially tweeted that this is the greatest hacker of all time. And the reason I said this is the greatest hacker of all time is because, as you know, when people of like high importance in sports, whoever get hacked, it's normally to plug some stupid crypto link or something, and it's like very obvious it's a hacker. Or when Skip Bayless was hacked, it was him saying nonsensical stuff that was like, okay, he's very clearly been hacked. But this hacker took the time to conjure up a trade that was so outrageous that no one would believe it. But he said it so professionally that it was going to be able to trick a lot of people. So I was like, this is an elite hack. This is one of the best hacks anyone has done. And then Shams came out with the second tweet saying, yes, this is real, and then gave the trade details. And I was like, okay, he kind of ruined the hack because Shams would never come out with, yes, this is real. Like, you kind of exposing the fact that it's a hack. And then ESPN posted it. So I was thinking, okay, so ESPN has been hacked. That's what I thought.
Yeah,
ESPN.
100%.
So like, okay, they just hacked headquarters. I get it. Cool. Everything's been hacked. And then Chris Haynes posted it. So then I was like, either the whole community's been hacked or they're all in on the prank. So I was like, but it's not April. But then I was like, okay, but the trade deadline's in February. So maybe they just moved April Fools to February for the NBA, because how else are they going to be able to do that? So I was like, okay, it's a prank. That's what I was thinking. It's a prank.
Yeah.
And then Shams went on TV.
Yeah.
And the first thing I thought was, okay, AI. Has to be. Has to be. I still didn't believe it. But then more people started talking. And I was like, okay, maybe this is real. And now I think it's finally sunk in that it's real. This is real.
Yeah.
But yeah, it took me so many steps to finally believe it. I think I went to sleep last night still not believing it. I think I woke up kind of not believing it. Then I saw the Dallas Mavericks tweet, "Welcome to Dallas, Anthony Davis." And I was like, okay. I guess he got traded for something else. Maybe it was Rui Hachimura. I don't know. Like I don't. It can't have been Luka Doncic. But that was my story of how this all went. But John D, what was going on for you when the trade went down?
I was actually making content. You know, I was getting ready to make a video for Paolo Banchero because, as we all know, Paolo Banchero has not been playing the best as of recently. So I'm getting the film breakdown ready. I'm gathering some clips for a film breakdown, and I get the notification. I don't look twice at it. Okay. You know, I click on it. Oh, he's been hacked. Okay, we keep moving. Then my brother calls me. I'm like, bro, he was hacked, bro. He was hacked. Don't let's not even give this 10 minutes. So he calls me again. He talking about, yo, bro, it made it to ESPN. So I'm like, okay, let's give this like 10, 15 more minutes so we can really see what's really going on, because I still didn't believe it. I didn't know what to think. So me and my little brother are like, because just for some context, my little brother is a Mavericks fan because he's a Luka fan. So wherever Luka goes, he goes. So he calls me. He's like, bro, I think this is real. And I have to see a video of Shams saying it for me to believe it. I'm like, yeah, Shams need to turn on the ring lights, get his microphone ready, and confirm this, because I'm not gonna believe it. I'm just not gonna believe it. And then I started getting more confirmations. People started going live, and I'm just walking around. I'm like, I don't know how to react, because my favorite team just got another top 5 player. Like, this is just the every 7 to 10 year type of thing. So in the end of the day, I'm happy, but it's like, did I expect this? Yeah. But I still didn't believe it. And I still won't believe it until Luka's bringing the ball up the floor in LA. Like, until I see him in the jersey bringing the ball up the floor on my TV, I still won't believe it.
I think what really hit home for me was when Nico Harrison and Jason Kidd did their press conference.
Yeah.
Talking about it. And also Nico Harrison was, I implore you to go watch it. It was
awful.
But I think that's really what I was like, okay, so yeah, this is real. But I can't wait to see them suit up. I will say I can't wait to see AD suit up in Dallas. I can't wait to see Lukas suit up in LA. And the thing that we haven't even spoke about, I can't wait to see Jalen Hood-Schifino hoop up in Utah. I can't wait. So like, there's a lot of big pieces moving all around. So it's definitely going to be interesting. Teddy Hart with a $20 super chat. Shout out to Teddy Hart. Said, people think there's a Grand Canyon-sized gap between first option AD and Luka. It's not. AD can approximate Luka's scoring production while also being among the best defenders in the league. Luka is all offense and a negative on defense. What's your thoughts on this?
I think AD can average close to 28 to 30 points per game, but I don't think AD can get close to the level of offensive output that Luka can. I don't think you're building the best offense in the league based off of strictly Anthony Davis's skills. So yes, Anthony Davis is a great two-way impact type of player, a top 10 player in the league stamped for me. And he does take this defense to another ceiling, but I don't think he can put out the level of offense that Luka can night to night. And I don't think that's disrespectful. Luka's a top 3 offensive player in the league. So
I think, once again, even if I granted that AD can average as many points as Luka, all 28s, all 30s, all 32s aren't created equal. An AD 32 is not the same as a Luka 32 in terms of the pressure it puts on a defense, in terms of how defenses react to it, in terms of how it's generated. So no, I don't even think AD can approximate Luka's scoring production, because I don't think scoring production goes just as far as how many points do you put up. If Josh Hart gives my team 20, that's not the same as if Alperen Şengün gives my team 20. It's different in terms of how we're reacting to it, how it's coming about, whether it's self-generated or assisted, what the pressure is putting on the defense, the spots on the floor. It's very different. So even from just a scoring perspective, Luka and AD, I don't think can be approximated. I don't think Anthony Davis can approximate Luka's scoring, even if the volume is comparable. And then, yes, I do agree Luka is a negative on defense, and I do agree Anthony Davis is among the best defenders in the league. I also think Luka is the best on-ball playmaker in the NBA. I do think Luka is, I want to say, just comfortably the second, or maybe for some people, but for me, the second best offensive player in the NBA. And I do think the value of individual offense does outweigh the value of individual defense. I think it's been that way for a while. And I think when you have the second best offensive player in the NBA and one of the best offensive players of all time, that does usually outweigh one of, if not the best defender in the sport. So yeah, I just think there is a sizable gap between AD and Luka. I just don't think that's the biggest issue of the trade. Even if they were comparable as level of players, I still think it's a terrible trade. So I don't think it's particularly relevant. And I also just don't agree with the conclusion you got to anyway. James said, this is my problem with Ox on Players' Choice. He stays getting mad, calling players babies and spoiled, and yet stays silent when stuff like this happens. To defend my guy Ox here, we don't know his take on the situation yet. We haven't seen him.
Yeah.
So you will see him tomorrow on PC, and then we will see if he stays silent on the situation. So like, I can't give that when like we don't know what Ox's reaction or opinion on the trade is. So for you to say you have a problem with Ox based on that, like, unless Ox has said something, like, I'm not gonna agree with that. So I don't agree with that line of thinking personally. No strays ENT. This trade has Adam Silver written all over it. He's been trying every trick in the book to boost ratings, and as a fellow Celtics fan, we see in your face when Tatum made that game winner versus the Pelicans. Yeah, I do need to address that. I don't know if you've seen it. I don't know if you're on Twitter. Celtics Twitter's frying me because we was on playback when Jason Tatum hit that game winner against the Pelicans. They're frying me because of the face I made when JT made the shot, and they believe that it was me hating on JT. And I'll put this out. I'm gonna give everyone my thought process as that was going on. Right, we was on playback with Chilltown, Ox, and Ron. That was the playback. We was meant to be watching the Bucks Spurs game, but as we know, that game turned into a blowout. So then we started watching this close Pelicans game. Also, hopefully DeJounte Murray can recover as soon as possible. Another torn Achilles. We never want to see that in the NBA. It's very unfortunate for him. Hope he recovers and comes back just as good as he was before. But anyway, the final possession comes around. And obviously, we know Chilltown is the Jason Tatum guy. So anytime JT is on the screen and I'm with Chilltown, I'm going to be trolling Chill. Like, JT missed a layup. See, I told you, hey, JT. Or he's going to settle for a side step three. Hey, same thing I do with Julius Randle. So then CJ McCollum goes and makes a layup. CJ McCollum goes and makes a layup. And then there's 24 seconds on the clock and JT gets the ball. And I'm there. I say, CJ McCollum plays defense. You can't tell I'm trolling at that point. Like, let's be serious. Okay. So, and then he goes one-on-one. He makes the shot. My plan was for Jason Tatum to miss the shot so I could just start frying Chill. Yeah. But he made it. And the face I made, I'm not going to show the clip because I can't be bothered to find it. But the face I made was that was tough. Like, that was that was what I was going for. Like, in my mind, it was, damn, that was tough. That was the face I was making. Like, yeah. Like, I don't want to say anything because it weren't helping my agenda. My agenda was to hate. Like, I was planning to hate, but he made the shot, so I couldn't hate. So I was just like, damn, that's tough. Like, that's what I was going for. So, like, they're frying me for hating because of the face I made, when my face was me like, damn, I can't even hate. Like, that was the face. So, like, technically they're right, because, like, I really wanted to hate, but I wasn't hating. So that's the story of what was going behind my facial expressions and what I was thinking at the moment. Thank you, backup. When Wemby made that same three, that buzzer beater, he shot a 30-footer in the game. I don't know if you've seen it. He shot a 30-footer, he banked it in. I made the exact same face. Like, if anyone's seen it and was watching the play, I made the exact same face. No one's gonna say I was hating on Wemby. That's just the face I make when I see something tough. I was like, damn, that was tough. But yes, I was trying to hate on JT, but I physically couldn't because it was tough. So, like, I'm getting fried on Twitter for it, but it's like, I'm not reacting to it because, like, it wasn't, I know what my intention was with that face I was making. But Celtics Twitter very mad at me and bringing up that I'm British and nonsense and biased and yada yada, whatever the case. So yeah, whatever. Anyway, DSG Piccolo, Lakers targeting Robert Williams. I will take Connect and that 2031 first. Also, Blazers been giving belt to your lower extremities lately.
Yes, they have. Oh my god.
Yes. And I do want to talk about the Blazers. I'm intrigued about, like, what's going on. Scoot is seemingly figuring things out. Some of it is just put up 3-point shooting. I don't think it's sustainable. But just in terms of the pace he's playing with, I do think there is growth there. Denny Avdia is, like I said, the Wizards. Not the Wizards. The Blazers' best player. He was the Wizards' best player last year. Toumani Camara is making a strong all-defensive case if he was on a competent team that would get him recognition. Shaden Sharp is, I don't know how I feel about Shaden, but he is one of my favorite players in the league. Donovan Clingan, I think, is really impactful every time he's out there. I like where the Blazers are going once you just get off Chauncey Billups in the offseason. I like where the Blazers are going. I'm very intrigued. I do think now is a great time. Now is a great time to be a Blazers fan before they ascend and you get called a bandwagon, is what I'm saying. And if you get a Dylan Harper or you get a Cooper Flag,
you're really put in position.
Yeah. 10 Men said, Dub Show, thank you. Is Nico Harrison a double agent?
Has to be. Has to be.
I mean, I do think he's sabotaging the Mavericks. So
Has to be.
yeah. Dubs Bestie said Luka and AD traded, but ticket only talks Bron. Hater. I mean, well, anytime LeBron is somewhat involved, it's gonna bring views, maybe even more views than if I made this title, LeBron traded Anthony Davis, like I probably would have got more views. So, but luckily for you guys, I don't view Hunt. Actually, that's a lie. I would love to get more views, but we'll just
I would
act like
like
I'm an
to
ethical YouTuber.
just like have a different type of community, you know. I would love to have more views. Like sometimes when I post videos, I'd be like, how can I put this title in? Should I say something I don't believe in the title to get more views? And I'd be like, nah, that's not the, you know.
Yeah, I'm ethical in the sense that I would love for more people to watch our content, my content, whatever. But I also want it to be the right people watching the content. I don't want people watching for the sake of watching. I want people watching because they want to hear my basketball insight, John's basketball insight. They want to hear the game beyond the narrative perspective of it. And if we get more people watching it who actually are here for that, that's great. But if we have our community that we have right now, which is actually a quite sizable community. Now, obviously, most of you guys are only here because of the trade. You're not here usually. But I still appreciate you guys watching this video anyway. But the community we usually have, I still appreciate that because it feels more like we're all here for the same goal of just talking about basketball. And that's what I like. But if there was 10,000 of you instead of the regular 200 of you, like, sure, that would be better for me and for John and for everyone. But I'm still happy with just having the right people.
Yeah.
Watching
I think that's really underrated when making content.
That's my thoughts. I do appreciate everyone who subscribed because I do believe you guys are subscribed because this is the type of content you seek out. And if I just changed up and became this clickbaity, make the trolls and stuff that I do elsewhere, if I made this all about that, I don't think you guys would want to watch it. So yeah, anyway. Teddy Hart, John D, the Mavs were my OKC's kryptonite prior to the trade, and now it's worse. Do you think the Mavs are now a better matchup for OKC than they were pre-trade?
To be completely honest, I think they don't become a better matchup, but I don't think they become a worse one. If you understand what
just
I'm
a
saying.
Different one.
They become a different. Some of the concerns have now gone away, but new concerns have been brought up. I do think Dallas can be a little. I think Dallas are bigger. They're bigger. They can dominate the glass. I do also think the same thing that OKC did with Luka and they now can do with Kyrie, and it can be much more effective, which is just blitzing the pick and roll ball handler with whether it's J-Dub and SGA, and you can play Chet and Hardenstein out there as well to kind of cover up for an AD role or a Gafford role. And I don't think Kyrie is the playmaker that Luka is out of these blitz situations or these trap situations. So now both of these guys do have issues to where if it comes to light in the playoffs, you could see like different pathways they can take to like rectify them.
Yeah, I think it's a different look that you can throw at them in terms of what you have at the rim in terms of that presence. If you look at last year's series, Shea absolutely destroyed individually, and that's with his mid-range shot making, but he couldn't get to the rim because of the way Dallas's defense was set up and because of their game plan. That's now got even worse.
Mm-hmm.
The OKC are very rarely going to get paint touches, rim attempts, and you're going to rely on shot making from maybe the best shot maker in the NBA. So I'm not saying it's an untenable strategy, but you are leaning into the idea that they don't have the consistent shooting presence. We are going to be able to mess up everything and get stop people from getting to the lane. So it does present that matchup problem, especially when you look at OKC as presently constructed with the lack of shooting. Now, the issue is OKC are the best defense in the NBA.
Yeah.
The way they are so successful against you guys, they blitz Luka and Kyrie, but they're still able to fly around, force turnovers, etc. Now you've removed Luka from that equation. They're going to blitz Kyrie even heavier, and you still don't have that release valve that is going to destroy that type of coverage. So that's the concern. So it's a different look. you're probably going to struggle more offensively and get better defensively. I know that's like very reductive. Oh my God, they lost Luka, so they're worse on offense, and they got AD, they're better on defense. Wow, what a take. But sometimes it really is that simple. Like sometimes the simple take is the correct take. And I'm not here trying to like overcomplicate things for the sake of it. If it's that simple, I do think they're going to be better on defense against OKC and worse on offense against OKC. So it's going to be a different look, whether that's better or worse than what happened last year. Because last year, obviously, they won, but I don't think it's that simple. I do think if they play that OKC Maverick series 10 times, I do think it's probably 5-5 in terms of who wins. I think it was that close.
Yeah.
And this year, I wouldn't be surprised if it's still something similar. I do think it's still a very evenly matched series, just in a different way. Any thoughts? Or
I think another outlier from that series, PJ Washington, he caught fire.
But he loves OKC. Like, he loves playing against OKC. So like that seems to just be what it is. You just get an all-star caliber player just for that series. So like, that's just part of it at this point. That's part of the equation. Sir Dragoon, more dragon, but with 2 O's. Kyrie has a player option this year as well. We did allude to that you could just lose Kyrie this season. That makes this trade even worse. So like this trade, like in my opinion, there's no reasonable, like in terms of like realistic outcomes where this trade is a win for Dallas. But there's so many avenues where this trade is even worse than I'm currently viewing it, where Kyrie doesn't resign. Anthony Davis is unavailable for extended periods of time. Anthony Davis regresses consistently year after year. And then you have no future, like where this trade can go so much further south than it already is. Bad trade. Kai Martinez. What if the Mavs add Levine or Jimmy with Kai and AD? The way that works is I assume Klay Thompson, and then you'd have to give up Daniel Gafford, and then probably something else to make money work. Dwight Powell, I don't know. I don't know the logistics. I wouldn't mind Jimmy. I do think Jimmy adds that extra dimension of playmaking. Then you get even more defense on the wing position. Levine is a bit more questionable. I do think he gives you more offensive punch, but in terms of the playmaking and the decision making that he's inevitably going to have to make in that role, there are questions there. But I'd be interested to see if the Mavs do make another high leverage move. I would be interested in that. So that's my thoughts. What's your thoughts on Levine or possible Jimmy?
I do like what Levine adds offensively, the shot making, the off ball play. But then again, my biggest concern with them offensively is just having that playmaking outside of Irving. Just having someone who can also make quick decisions and create for others. So I would definitely lean Jimmy a little bit more. But as for the package that they would have to give up, sometimes I may lean that it may not be worth it. Because he's going to expect to get paid, and you have a player option from Kyrie Irving coming up. AD is going to be making 58 to 62 within the next few seasons, and you don't have a lot of draft capital as well. So I don't know how realistic it is that Jimmy ends up in Dallas now, but if you could get that extra playmaking that Jimmy does provide, I would say it's a plus.
NP13 said, as a follow-up, the appeal for Dallas amongst players is the no state tax. But with this situation and then how good, flexible, and young the other Texas teams are, Houston and San Antonio, why would anyone come to the Mavs? That's what I was thinking, because obviously the appeal with Dallas and these Texas teams is that tax, is the tax stuff, which once again, I don't fully understand. I'm not American. I don't know, but I do hear a lot about this like state tax. I don't know if it's like, I don't know how it works. I just know California's crazy. Texas, not so much. That's like the extent.
Chicago's up there as well.
Yes. So yeah, but I do think that does just make Houston and San Antonio more desirable. Look, I mean, Wemby is like, oh my God, Wemby
it's like
no state tax.
Yeah,
and then Houston with like the young talent they got, Jalen Green, I still think is turning a corner. Like I think we're getting to a point where, like, he maybe not an all-star caliber player, that's fine, but we're getting to that point where like even when he's not playing well or scoring well, like the process is better. Like Jalen Green is a promising young player. Amen Thompson, the whole world is raving about him now. He just had the worst game of like damn near his career last night, but besides the point. Young talent, amazing, extremely promising. Şengün just made his first all-star team. Reed Shepherd, Cam Whitmore, Tyrese, and Jabari Smith, Ime Udoka. Like Houston have a lot going on. So like I do think they are inherently more desirable than Dallas now, just for a myriad of reasons, one of which being how Nico Harrison has treated the best player the team has had in a decade. So definitely a very valid point from MP13 that I thank him for bringing that up, because I never would have brought that up on today's show. So thank you.
Yeah.
Backup said, "What's the most Luka can make now, and how far do you think the Mavs can go with this roster?" I believe it's 229, right?
Yeah.
And then how far do I think the Mavs can go? I think they can go to the finals. Realistically, depending on matchups, second round or conference finals. I think whenever they run into OKC, they would lose, but I do think they could beat anyone else in the West. I do think Denver provides some problems. I do think Houston could provide some problems just for them in terms of the defense and slowing down Dallas's offense. So, like, there's tough matchups for them, but I do think they can get to the conference finals. They can beat anyone besides OKC, in my opinion, in the West. A couple more, only 4 more. DSG Piccolo said, and Lakers fans are trying to convince us there's a Lakers tax. Yeah, you guys were trying to do that. I'd say like, you have to pay more for these type of for players in trades. Yeah, never again am I hearing that. Never again. I'm sorry, never again. If you have to give up an extra first round pick for a role player, I don't care. Shut up. I don't care. I don't care. I'm just making that abundantly clear. I do not care. Realist 123. I'm sad about AD leaving. Not gonna lie, I don't know how I feel. Yeah, we've spoke about the Lakers trade, but how do you feel that AD is officially no longer a Laker?
It hurts. I mean, I really like Anthony Davis, and the fact that he's from Chicago, I'm gonna have a bias there. But in the end of the day, I can still root for AD somewhere else. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, "Oh yeah, I really like AD," and we're just gonna keep him and not get Luka. Like I have to understand like it's what's best for us right now. I'm still gonna be cheering for AD. So if the Dallas Mavericks are in the conference finals against the Thunder, I'm gonna cheer for the Mavericks because AD has brought my team a championship. So yeah, it sucks. And it's like I really feel for Dallas fans too, man. I really do feel for Dallas fans. It's like I've been walking around here smiling, but I really do feel for y'all. Cause it's like you go on TikTok and you see all these Luka and Kyrie edits everywhere, and you see these LeBron and AD edits everywhere, and it's just like, man, I might have to turn on the 2024 Western Conference Finals one more time and just let it play.
Could you imagine if the Bucks traded Giannis in 2019 for Damian Lillard?
That would have been ridiculous.
Like that's how like I'm viewing it as like the equivalent. Like that's like how it's coming up in my brain. Like it's just
Yeah. Like
wow.
imagine going back in time when a Mavericks fan is celebrating going to the NBA Finals and be like, just grab.
Oh yeah, you traded Luka in 6 months back.
Yeah, bro. In February, Luka's gonna be a Laker, and any team but the Lakers too. It's like, yeah,
it's ridiculous. It's still hard to believe. Kendrick Jenkins said, "Ideal center Lakers could pair with Luka." I think we gave out some of the options: Claxton, Robert Williams, Walker Kessler.
Yeah.
Jakob Poeltl was one. Anyone else we're really thinking of, or are those
Jakob Kessler, Claxton, Poeltl. I don't want Mitchell Robinson. He would be good in theory, but the injury history, it just really concerns me. So I think everybody we brought up is cool.
Alec Tanksley said the Celtics are moving like Man City this year. That's a football reference. He's basically saying the Celtics are not playing well. They're falling off. Bad season. Yada, yada, yada. James, with his clarification about what he said about Ox, he was saying, I was saying Ox seems to be okay with ownership decisions, even if it doesn't benefit the player. But when it's the opposite, he's always vocal. I mean, I think I can't speak for Ox because I'm not him. But I believe he's just of the understanding of, I don't think it's about him condoning or condemning. I think it's about him understanding. He's always been on the side of it's business. These business owners are going to do what's best for their business. And us getting mad at them isn't going to change the fact that it's business. I think that's kind of where he's at, where he views the players as employees, which quite factually they are. Whether we like it or not, they are employees. The owners own the team. It's capitalism. The owners own it. It's not a socialist society where the workers own the means of production, where the players are more important than the owners. No, it's capitalism. And under that capitalist system, the owners are going to do what's best for the team, and they have every right to do so. Whether or not Ox views that as the right thing or he likes that is that way, I don't know. That's for him to answer or for you to ask him. But I believe he's just explaining that's the way it is. And if you have a problem with Ox explaining that's the way it is, then you have a problem with the system. I don't think you have a problem with Ox, personally. But Anyway, but Ox can defend himself better than I could defend Ox. I'm just kind of just explaining what I think from what I hear from Ox. Chico Smurder said, "Do you think LeBron stays in LA?"
Yes, I think he wants to retire a Laker.
I would assume so too. And then our final super chat, you don't have to answer this because this is about football. Akeem said, "Do you think CR7 is better than peak R9 and Henri, and why? And does CR7 have the second greatest peak after you know who, being Lionel Messi?" Yes, I think he's better than peak R9 and Henri. Respectfully, I don't think Henri's in these talks. I think peak Cristiano Ronaldo is maybe the most complete attacking player we've ever seen. Whether that be from carrying the ball, dribbling, beating players, playing in transition, playing in the box, headers, volleys, tap-ins, long shots, free kicks, penalties. There was nothing he couldn't do. He was elite in every facet of attacking play. When you look at that period from like 2012 to 2014, that period of time, there was nothing Ronaldo couldn't do on the attacking side of the ball. In a way that, and then the production, the output was amazing. He was the top scorer in the world. Him and Messi, obviously. So like, it's kind of tough to say. I think Henri was matching that. I don't personally. I think Ronaldo physically is maybe the best football player ever. Him, Gareth Bale, like just the physical profile they have. And then everything else he was able to do and build up and stuff, he was still great in that role. So I do think Ronaldo is better than Henri for sure. R9, I would have the conversation because I do think R9 is one of the most complete attacking players ever. And then second greatest peak, I mean, of players I've seen, sure. I'm not gonna like I watch Maradona games. Like football is not a sport like the NBA where I've gone back and watched these legends. Football, nah, I just don't care. I'm not watching Maradona or Pele. Like I watch highlights and I make my opinion. I'm a casual. But best I've seen, second best I've seen, probably. Yeah, probably. But in terms of the reality of it, I mean, if I went back and watched Maradona, maybe I'd change my mind. I don't know. But what I've seen, yes, Ronaldo. There you go. That's my answer. And then Vale or Vale said, "Mars, this trade is Haaland for Lewandowski." I think it's way worse than that. But that brings us to the end. That brings us to the end. So we went for nearly 2 hours. I'm not surprised that we overran a little bit. I hope you guys did enjoy. For anyone who's new around here, we do this podcast, the Hoop Talk podcast, every Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern, where we talk about a bunch of different things, whether that be us ranking players, top tens, discussing what's going on in the NBA, what teams are doing. We just talk about the game of basketball. If that's what you're interested in, away from the nonsensical narratives you hear every day on the mainstream media or on other channels. This is what we do every Sunday. We have a nice community here. So if you're new here, subscribe, post notifications, like the video. I think you would enjoy it here if you enjoyed today's episode. Shout out to everyone who's a regular around here. But once again, before we get out of here, John D, where can everyone find you?
Everyone can find me over at the Buzzer Sports, where we drop basketball content 5 to 6 days a week, whether it's NBA draft content, whether it's rankings, whether it's reactions, whether it's film breakdowns. We cover all things basketball 5 to 6 days a week. And Sundays is when I take my breaks, and you guys can catch me over here at the Buzzer Sports. We're going to be doing a lot more draft content since that's hitting up. Trade deadline, obviously, might as well have just started, so we're going to be doing a lot of trade content as well. And this will not be my last time speaking on the Luka and AD trade. So if you guys want to find me, check out at the Buzzer Sports.
As always, John D's links are in the description. Any links where you want to find me are also in the description. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all in the description. John D has his YouTube channel in the description and his Instagram. No, he has the podcast Instagram in the description. And his TikTok link is in the description, as always. We will see you guys. Well, I will see you guys on PC tomorrow. I'm going to have to talk about his trade again. John D will see you on his channel, hopefully, if you go and subscribe like you should, at the Buzzer Sports. And then we will see you again when we see you. But thank you guys for watching. Leave comments and your thoughts on the trade after the fact. But yeah, we will see you. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. And